Hi, everyone. Welcome to our ATMA webinar on relocation to second-tier cities, challenges and opportunities. We have a fantastic panel with us today. Let me talk first about a bit about ATMA, and then I will go to my panelist. As you all know, ATMA, which is Asia Talent Management Mobility Alliance, is about it's a not-for-profit organization which is dedicated to enhancing innovation and development of the talent mobility industry in Asia. Our vision primarily is to enhance the innovation and development of talent mobility in Asia. We definitely strive to be the authority on talent mobility for governments and businesses in Asia, provide support to mobility professionals throughout Asia. We do a lot of mentoring and handholding for various talents within Asia and making them enhance and their impact on their roles in Asia as well. Just a quick slide on the board members. We are present across different geographies within Asia. We have Singapore, Malaysia, India, Philippines, Japan, and the US. And all of them come with more than 15 to 20 years plus experience on various aspects of global talent mobility as well. Our four central pillars for ATMA are one is ESG. We have done a lot of work on ESG and sustainability for our members, helping them navigate through these new rules and regulations across ESG and sustainability. Advocacy is to represent our members for various government-related issues, policies, whether it's tax or immigration or any other policies. Another key area where we have seen significant impact is around education and development. Besides these webinars, we also have a very strong mentorship program where we are mentoring various senior talent across Asia, global mobility talent across Asia. And finally, another big objective of this particular alliance is to bring people together, whether through networking or through conferences. We recently had a very fantastic conference in Singapore in September. Idea is to bring all the community together and address challenges, address issues, share experiences, and share knowledge, and thereby enhance the impact which we can have as one team. So whether it's the in-house corporate global mobility provide talent professionals, or even the extended network of service partners, which together as an extended team help drive the global mobility for various organizations across Asia. So now introducing my fantastic panel today, to start with Cecilia. Hi, she's a senior partner account manager at Silverdo in Singapore. She has more than 20 years of experience, and she sources accommodation through APAC to align with global mobility and the corporate client needs. So thank you, Cecilia, for your time and effort for joining us today.
No, thank you.
Karen Juluaga from Relo Network Asia, Philippines. She's a destination specialist. She again has been a part of the real estate industry for more than 20 years, and especially with 10 years in relocation experience. So thank you, Karen.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, and we have Rajesh Motwani. He's the CEO of iOS Relocations, the leading destination service provider in India. I have personally worked with iOS in my past role, so absolutely a fantastic organization and been hugely impactful in managing really high-end VVIP and high-touch services. So Rajesh, thank you for joining us today as well.
Thank you, Dharmesh, and thank you, Atma, for putting such a spectacular webinar for us.
I think cumulatively we have more than 70 years of experience in a panel, so it is absolutely fantastic to kind of have all of you talk on this very unique topic about us, because this is something which we otherwise are not being able to discuss has not come up in very open discussions about relocation to tier 2 cities. While we know that there's a lot of expansion of various businesses going on in the tier 2 cities, and there is a movement of some senior talent to tier 2 cities, but not enough has been discussed within the global mobility teams about how to manage this. And the more we look into it, more we realize that what necessarily applies to tier one does not necessarily apply to tier two as well. And there are a lot of new things which come up in tier two relocation which do not normally exist in tier one. So to expand a little more on that, we will go into a longer, a deeper discussion on these issues when it comes to tier two. So when we talk about tier two largely, it is about, there's a cost, which is four key aspects we want to talk about when it comes to tier two relocation. One is the cost. One is the infrastructure, which is available in the tier two cities. About the talent integration, the talent pipeline, which can happen in tier two cities. And finally, the culture, whether it's a work culture, the overall extended culture of the city. How does that impact, and what kind of things one needs to take care when you're moving senior talent or even doing an intra-country moves into tier two cities as a resulting out of your business expansion or some acquisitions. So as I mentioned that, tier two city, the first thing which we understand is that they have become a great opportunity for businesses to expand, and there's significant cost arbitrage on the real estate cost, especially. But of course, when the companies expand in tier two cities, is largely to do with availability of talent. Then it is then complemented by a reduction in overall real estate cost compared to tier one cities. So that becomes a big, huge attraction point for large businesses to expand to tier two cities and set up centers over there. Recently, especially if I look at India, a lot of expansion is happening in what we call as the GCC space, or the Global Capability Center space. We have new cities coming up in India like Jaipur, Jodhpur, Visakhapatnam, Madurai, which are now, making significant strides in expanding. We see a lot of statements from state governments actually to, promote GCC as promote themselves as a great destination for GCCs. So there's a kind of a competition in India within states to attract more companies to set up GCC in their states. So while that is the great demand side, the pull side of it, obviously one needs to take care of the real issues which are underlying these kind of moves or underlying these kind of expansions. One is definitely the people, the culture, the work culture in that particular location, how it works, not just within the corporate offices, but as a location, what is the work culture of that location? What are the practical aspects of the location, whether it's the infrastructure in that particular location? What kind of services do you get? Is it that just because it's a tier two city, would that result in kind of a different compensation kind of conversation with the talent? How do you deal with talent moving from a tier two one to tier two city when it comes to things like career moves, compensations, and how do you address that? So I think this has all resulted in HR looking at tier two cities a little differently compared to their global policies or the national policies around what they do for talent in tier one. And an objective of this conversation is also to make sure that you are, able to appreciate what are the hidden costs which comes with this tier two city moves. So let's do a kind of a deep dive on these issues. Let's start first with housing and infrastructure and connectivity. Now, what we obviously observe is that while the corporates are expanding big time, whether the housing market is keeping pace with such corporate expansions, is the quality of housing in line with what corporate expansions are happening. Like we know a lot of large global organizations also have a strong duty of care, and they want to make sure that their talent is, whoever they are bringing in from other cities or other countries is essentially living in a particular minimum quality of housing, minimum quality of services, minimum quality of security around them. So to expand more on this, I'm going to ask my panelists to kind of share their experiences on housing and connectivity based on their own experiences. Let's start with Cecilia first. If you want to talk a little more about hello.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for having me. So I have I was very, very fortunate to be called upon to actually go and visit one of a tier two city in Taiwan for one of our clients. And when I was there, just to share with you all, because in Taiwan itself, everyone knows Taipei very well, and Taipei has a good choice of service apartment or international chain in that country. However, when I went to places like Tainan, it's somewhat very different because we would have thought that they might have some similar type of accommodation there, but it wasn't that. Most of the better accommodation would steer towards the hotel stay. So in order to find a temporary accommodation for this client of ours, which is predominantly more towards the service apartment model, it was relatively tough. And because there is no somewhat similar type of accommodation. So I did a check before I go to Tainan, and they have this type of accommodation called, like, they call it the Mingsu. Is their way of calling it like a motel. But the quality of the apartments there are relatively not bad for a for someone that is local, or for people like myself, a Singaporean that is traveling into that country. However, it just lack of a standard whereby corporate clients just want to make sure that all the assignee or all their teammates who are going into that host country get the same type or same level of accommodation needs. So that's where, even though as much as Silverdor wanted to recommend this type of accommodation, and I brought some of them to see this type of accommodation, it still doesn't match the expectation. And things like, when you're going for a longer stay, things like food, things like laundry services, things like having that community, because some of the assignee might be coming from India, might be coming from Indonesia, whereby their their dietary is different. So going into Taiwan, it is something that is difficult for them, and that's where Silverdor will have to try to leverage on what we know best and try to speak to property partners that we deem it's a very good fit for this client, and negotiate with them with a good value so that we can place in their assignee into this tier 2 country, which I find it really interesting. And it was a great experience for me, because ultimately, I think the world is embracing more and more, people coming into, or people from all walks of life or all over the world that is coming into, like I said, the tier 2 country. So this was a wonderful experience. And at the same time, other than Taiwan, we also went into Japan, whereby we also helped out in placing clients in a tier 2 city, whereby, we all know that Japan is quite prone to things like earthquake. So there are, and when we source for temporary accommodation for this group of assignee, we have to think of something that was out of the box. So what we did is we actually asked our property partner, whereby can they offer like an emergency kit with basic first aid equipment inside, and also maybe 2 to 3 days of ration food to be given to the assignee when they first moved in. So these are small little things that we have to incorporate when we move assignees to countries like that.
Yeah, thank you, Cecilia. I think these are fantastic examples. I mean, especially Taiwan, and the assumption or the perception of that is, it's a very global setup over there, and to find this as an on-ground reality is a bit different. I think that's where you add a lot of value to the global mobility teams in kind of highlighting these issues to the team in advance, so that they can kind of incorporate that in their relocation program to Taiwan. So that's very unique. Karen, about you, about the tier 2 cities in the Philippines, I think what's been your unique observation over there?
Yeah, so for the Philippines, outside of Metro Manila, we have areas called economic zones. So these are where large manufacturers usually locate, and we find some expats who have to locate to those areas. A lot of these areas are local, so there are not necessarily expat level or expat quality houses or condominiums, sometimes no condominiums at all. So we have to focus on houses. And when we do, we get consultants. We have consultants who live in the place so that they know the quality properties. And we look for properties that are gated villages, so for added security. In other areas like Clark, for example, they're a little more developed, so they would have the infrastructure. They have some condominiums, no serviced apartments, however. So when we, in those cases, and we have a requirement for serviced apartments, we have a third party that we deal with who sets up the apartment as a serviced apartment. They provide the cleaning, the laundry, set up for the apartment with all the furniture, appliances, and equipment that they need for their day-to-day living.
So, yeah. Thank you, Karen. Rajesh, I think you have a range of experience given how vibrant and how diverse India is in terms of different states, and as we see expansion happening in states like Gujarat or Assam, which are so different from the usual Bangalore, Hyderabad growth. So I think your experience dealing with these cities, I think it'll be a huge input for our global mobility professionals.
Yeah, thank you. Warm welcome to everyone. So quite similar to what Karen said, it's interesting how Philippines, and there are similarities also in a developing country like India. Uh, from the outset, I just want to make sure that whatever we say at times, we sound like it's full of challenges, and that creates a negative perception. So we have a lot of good solutions, and if you do some good planning and calibration, take some good policy decisions, I think the relocation can be done very well. It's in temp accommodation or it's in DSP services, can be highly successful. So when it comes to India, I think there are three or four things which you typically look into. If I could just point out the three things that there's a rapid growth which is happening in the tier two cities, as Dharmesh was saying, but there's the lack of uniform governance around these cities. And then if you basically look at, so what is the three things which you require to be done in India? Is a lot more oversight is required. There are certain costs which are basically have to be considered, and because the predictability of long-term cost is not very easy out here. So while India is cheaper, but the long-term cost predictability has to be considered, and therefore we always try to basically say that to have a contingency plan, put a 30% sort of cost element a little bit higher so that you can navigate through all the challenges. And then one thing again about India is these micro markets, I think very similar to Philippines, as you say, micro market knowledge. So as if you look at Ahmedabad, which is in the Gujarat state of Gujarat, and very vibrant, very nice. But the development in Ahmedabad will be much lower than some of the other satellite micro markets which are coming up. So you'll have a gift city, which is up north. On the west, you have a manufacturing area where you have a lot of development happening called Sanand. And now, 2 hours away in a place called Dolera, they're coming up with an entire township, which is again for semiconductor. Now, these places are really fraught of challenges because there's no uniformity. Inconsistent housing procedures are there across these cities and across these particular micro markets. Lease registration is different, police verification. Sometimes you need to do KYCs, and there's no professional, building management which is there. That's not there. There is a multiple stakeholders which are there for housing typically. You'll have brokers, and not one broker, you'll have multiple brokers within a particular deal. You'll have landlords, you have societies, you have association, and service providers. So a lot of basically these inconsistency, which requires a lot of oversight and these hidden costs which needs to be taken care of, a contingency planning. One other thing, for example, in India, the zoning is not very clear, residential and say commercial zoning. So we had a situation which is in Vadodara, which is another city in Gujarat, where it is a beautiful community. People were staying in there, but there was a vacant piece of land, not really, it was not supposed to be for that, but a cricket training camp popped up over there, and cricket can be very noisy out there. So all throughout the evening, so all hell broke loose. We had to move them out. So when you find that these challenges, no matter whether you can escalate it, you find that these little challenges can become a bigger issue. So a solution would be do, as we say, do pre-vetted apartment complexes. Do a lot of pre-checks before you basically move in. Create some sort of a relationship if you can with some sort of a builders to provide some, some standard amenities. So if you do all of these pre-steps and if you think through before, I think you will be able to alleviate the moving community into a much better community with lesser issues.
Yeah. And if I can also expand more a little bit on of, nowadays with work from home becoming more and more relevant in today's times, digital connectivity also plays a very important role in terms of ensuring that there's an effective work from home kind of a scenario for many of this talent moving into tier two cities. What's been your experiences in ensuring that, work from home also is a successful model? I mean, especially if, let's say, your office is like 2 hours away from where you've been given accommodation. Is it and nowadays corporates wanting you to come only like twice or thrice a week maximum? Then is this something which is sustainable as well in tier two cities? Rajesh, you want to go first on that?
Yeah, well, actually, it's a very good point, Dharmesh. But I think in India, the utilities and these internet connection are basically having a different set of challenges. Power outages, fluctuations, just makes it very, very challenging. So what we typically negotiate in the lead solutions along with that is to basically have these inverter and backup powers available.
Yeah.
We also basically talk about, basically do a little bit more for the assignee. Make sure that you have a little unsettling in budget which you can provide to them. Provide them some allowances so that they can actually bake it into the home working. Reimbursements are provided to them. Have
Yeah.
alternate basic solution. So yes, these hidden costs will pop up, but we need to basically also ensure that you basically put this all into leads, make sure it's very well structured, and that becomes a normal procedure.
Yeah. Oh, wow, that's nice. Cecilia, anything which you encountered in Taiwan on these lines?
So, Eddie, I will think that Taiwan, in terms of such infrastructure, they are doing all right. But if there is an instances whereby our guests are not able to have that facility, we have to find immediate solution, which can be like a plug and play. We can get something immediately for them. So one thing great is that you have to be nimble at all times. Wherever such a scenario comes up for us, we need to immediately address it.
Oh, got it. Karen, how about tier two in Philippines?
Yeah, same with us. Most of the big cities outside of Manila would have major providers for the internet for their water and electricity. But we cannot help that every now and then there will be power outages or sometimes even no water because there are repairs being done. So yes, we have to just be sure to let them know and prepare them ahead of time. We require now generators for all the properties that we locate our clients to, and water tanks as well, if they're in areas where sometimes they have frequent water outages. And we always recommend the larger service providers because for the internet, because they're more reliable than the small local providers in the area. They have better staff and so on.
Okay. I mean, all of this, I think these are very unique challenges, and that obviously those also demand unique solutions. I mean, it's not one size that fits all kind of a solution, because every city is unique, their challenges are unique. But it's important to understand because finally all of these actually have an impact on the overall cost of the relocation or the cost of the assignment, which normally from a global mobility standpoint, not enough has been highlighted, or it becomes more of a post facto kind of a cost which gets entered into the assignment cost and not something you budget upfront. So the challenges about all you poses, I think it's very, very critical for the global mobility guys to ensure that they have on-ground information through your knowledge about what the city is, the location is, and what kind of challenges they will face if they have to have more accurate cost estimates and more accurate view of how much the assignment will overall cost for the organization. Because yes, I mean, everybody works on ROI and cost of assignments and cost of relocation, and I think it's important for global mobility professionals to ensure that whatever estimates they prepare are closer to the actuals and not the standard cost, because every location will come up with their own surprises and therefore will have their own challenges. I think that seems to be the larger context here in terms of tier two, what we're kind of gathering right now. Some other more softer aspects of the move to tier two cities is largely around, when we move to tier two cities, people look for integration at the individual level, trying to understand the local network, the local connectivity, the local language, uh, their local lifestyle. How do they change their lifestyle when you move from tier two one to tier two? Whether it really is a big change for them, availability of schools, international schools, especially for expat who are non-residents of that country. And at the same time, there could be a situation where there are not enough of the peer talent around in the tier two city as you normally find in a tier one city. Now, in such scenarios, as your relocation professionals, how have you helped your clients to kind of deal with some of these issues? Maybe Cecilia, you want to go first on that?
Sure. So being part of a working in a property myself before, so in order for our um, assignees to go into the host country, we always highly advise, and speaking from experience, our property partners who are new to this group of assignee to somewhat come out with an activity so that they can create a bonding within this group of guests that are coming from the same company, or even if they are new to this country, the host country, and just to make them engage, because some of us are really first time traveling out into the host country, and we never know what sort of things to experience. So what we do here is we'll highly recommend or highly ask our property provider to perhaps come up with activities, and we will also ask our guests to go and enjoy these activities. I think there's one property partner of ours in Taiwan that hosts such monthly activities with their guests, their in-house guests, and it has proved to be really successful. And this create a small community between them whereby they can share information, whereby they can share with each other where are the do's and don'ts, how to get to these places. So this is extremely helpful for all this new assignee going to the host country.
Sure. Rajesh, I think you have seen different nationalities converging into Bangalore and now tier two, and these aspects are very finer software aspects. I mean, you have sometimes also see assignments not working out because the extended family has not been able to settle in the new location, and those are more stronger consequences of these issues. So your inputs on these issues, I mean, these are really sometimes no-go issues for a lot of expats as well.
It is. I mean, it's a cultural shock within India when you do a domestic move itself, because North, East, West, they all speak like multiple different languages. So really the way India is seen as like a mini Europe, I tell people. Many languages, many dialects, regional influences, all of that turns out to be a big challenge, to be honest. But so we recommend strongly that we must go through a cross-cultural training, do a language support, and then also just not think about the transfer with the family, because the success of the program really depends upon the entire success of the family staying together and putting it up together. Now, when we look at the other aspects, when you talk about lifestyle or international schools, we definitely recommend to put some community engagement programs for them, do some expat meetups. You got to do a little bit more when you talk about tier two, because naturally tier one you have the extended communities and networks. So here the mobility team, the HR team, along with the DSP extra, have to do a little bit more. We need to probably look at whether there is any kind of homeschooling option which are available. When you enroll kids into school, monitoring has to continue, because when there's not too many international schools, but the if they're good international school, but you still need to look out for whether any children dragging, so or any kind of other challenges. So we got to constantly monitor. One thing which is there, which we think also we keep recommending and we try to put into places, that how do you this social isolation? How do you basically address that? And now we look at buddy programs. So if you do these buddy programs and if you create some sort of a structured approach to it, then I think you can actually get people to that they're being heard and they can actually understand culturally how do you answer this, what are the issues you possibly somebody else will be facing, how do they navigate through those issues. So it really becomes a community, and then you're creating a community within your own company, but also the other expat communities which exist. So it's actually a big support system which you have to create in these tier two cities.
Yeah, absolutely. Karen, what
Yes,
about
yeah, I agree. Similar to Rajesh and Cecilia, we do recommend and we refer them to different groups, social groups that they maybe have a similar interest in or similar background. Um, we have a lot of Facebook groups and Viber chat groups or WhatsApp groups that we help them join so that they have that community when they arrive. But in terms of language, Filipinos speak English pretty well across, the country, no matter where you go. Some areas better than others, but you can get your message across. And the Philippines also is pretty Western. So a lot of the Westerners who come in find it very easy to adapt. The Filipinos are also very friendly and welcoming. So anywhere you go, when you leave, you will have a whole bunch of friends that you will be leaving behind because, it's very easy to make friends or make a community when you move to the Philippines.
Oh, good. Thank you. I think before I proceed, I just want to tell the participants if you have any questions, you can put in the Q&A box. I mean, we will definitely take all of these questions at the end of this session as well. Cecilia, in terms of Taiwan, do you see any local language barriers here impacting your expat population moving into Taiwan?
Of course, even to just for myself, speaking to the property partners, they are also really worried. I do not know why, but they didn't know that even Singaporeans can speak Mandarin. So they were like, "Can you speak Mandarin?" So it was quite interesting. I said, "Yes, I do." So they were like, "Oh, thank God, that's really helpful," because the property partners are equally worried as well. They want to make sure that the people, the clients or the guests that they are hosting are well taken care of. So they want to ensure that every guest that we put in their property is well looked after. So language is definitely a barrier, but like what all the panelists have gladly said, as long as we have come up with like a good plan or even like a buddy system whereby we can, create that environment whereby they will feel at ease. I was in Thailand at a moment of time whereby I saw a huge group of if I'm not wrong, they are actually Indians engineer, like wandering around in one of the properties, and they were so comfortable. And even though they were all speaking in their own language, somehow or rather, there's one person in that team that seems to be able to understand the Chinese or the Mandarin language, and that one person helped to disseminate the information out to the rest of the team, which I thought it was wonderful having to see the collusion together where everyone comes together as a community, someone who is not from this host country, but coming together in a brand new country. So it's wonderful. And it's really important or paramount for us to actually tell our property partner that, these are the guests that will be staying with you. They are coming from countries that has no idea what you are speaking, and we just have to preempt them. I think communication is extremely important when it comes to moving people in that country where they don't speak the language.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the challenges actually create their own opportunities actually for the global mobility teams and by your extended advisors to kind of help them ensure that they will be taken care of, because yes, some cities, some countries may have real challenges on language as well. I mean, in India, obviously, there are some states which have a lot of focus on local language, which are some of most of them are very easy to understand English, but on a day-to-day basis, sometimes you need to ensure that there are some language sensitivities put in place as well, as a more of a preparatory services for somebody to move into that particular location, I guess. Yeah,
Right.
Rajesh, Bangalore, I'm sure, has a lot of vibrant expat population, and I mean, I remember the initial days, like the 10 years before, when there was Bangalore was just growing fast on the expat side or the expat scene. There was a lot of work done on integrating them into Bangalore culture, the local language culture. Do you see such needs now coming up in tier two as well? As you have a lot of clients who are moving into these locations. You do a lot of intra-India moves. It's not just like expat as well, but a lot of people moving within the country as well.
Well, Bangalore is unique because it's a pub culture. So
Yeah,
beer was one of the big, unifier, if I may say so. But
yeah,
but keeping that aside, other cities you do find that there is a lot more, development which is happening in order to help, to keep that particular vibrancy up. But some states are very unique. Now, look at Gujarat and also Bihar, which is up east northeast, where this is turning out to be a dry states. So not that alcohol is what I'm saying, but in general, what you find that when the young dynamic workforce are basically limited by, by certain criteria with the states define, then it does become a challenge to hire people and motivate them to move out there. So I think you need to look at there are certain elements which does basically make India very unique and nuanced. But
yeah,
again, what really drives the tier two cities is the growth. I mean, you have a metro pop up over there, the infrastructure is there, you have huge IT parks which is coming in, the government is creating a lot of job opportunities. So there's a natural flow of that particular development which is causing people to move. And I think that will sort of dovetail into your next topic about, how do you basically make them successful through careers and everything else.
yeah.
So yeah, really, to be honest, I think the natural growth, the rapid growth happening in tier two cities is attracting a whole lot of talent, and they're putting away these other smaller concerns about the cultural fit, and they're adapting to their new cities. But obviously, we need to spend more time in order to help them acclimatize and do better and more.
Sure. I think, I mean, tier two cities actually, as you see more and more, it requires a separate focus. I think that's what the feel you get after listening to you all is that it's nothing to do with how you manage a tier one city, but it's like you have to look at tier two very independently and not kind of apply some of the assumptions you have on tier one.
Absolutely.
So I think that becomes very critical as well. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely, Dharmesh.
Yeah, I think there's some common perceptions around tier two, but which obviously in some places may have been a little more valid some time ago. But I think with businesses very focused on their successful assignments and successful outcomes, I believe there's a lot of focus now going on in terms of making sure that tier two also becomes as attractive from a relocation perspective as is tier one. In terms of either one, it's the fact that many people actually end up going for a larger role when you're moving from tier one to tier two. I mean, to take care of the expansion of the business. Some new roles and some new projects are getting created there. So obviously, while assignments, overall, you moving from a tier one to a tier two may feel a little less prestigious in terms of the location as a perception, but I think at individual level, I think they're a lot more becomes a lot more important and impactful given the fact that most of them go with a bigger role into tier two cities. Looking at the fact that a lot of expansion is happening in tier two, where you have the global capability centers. I think they're creating a lot more employment opportunities. So, which is resulting a lot of moves within the country to join that particular tier two city. So, I think to make the whole move or whole hiring more attractive, I think tier two cities becomes a very important selling point for the businesses as well. And that's where inputs from extra partners like you becomes more and more attractive for the talent attraction as well, in terms of what more the business is doing to help them settle in, help them find it attractive to kind of move there. The one point which obviously they talk about is around the relocation packages, right? I mean, when you prepare the relocation packages for people moving from a tier 1 to tier 2, a lot of things are not necessarily surfaced at the time when the package is being prepared. So I think what we are listening out in as a part of this conversation is that fact that you first need to get your homework done about tier 2 city very well as an HR professional or global mobility professional. Understand the nuance, the finer nuances of what is involved in that particular location, and then bring that into your relocation package to make it as seamless as possible for the person moving into that location. From your own personal network, in terms of you just mentioned about how you have created professional networks for them to feel assimilated in the new location, connect you with a lot of other people as well. What more opportunities do you kind of recommend, or do you kind of help as a part of your overall business strategy also to bring your clients together into tier 2 cities? If you can expand a little more on that, that will help. Karen, you want to go first on that?
In terms of additional expenses when they move and getting them ready, we have a small briefing, a short briefing of all the additional expenses that they may occur depending on their situation. Some of these are like association dues or maintenance fees that the condominium or the apartment may charge outside of the rent. Their insurance for personal goods. Utilities are never included in the rent, almost never. And so you have your electricity, water, telephone, cable TV if you still use it, internet, sometimes cooking gas and drinking water as well. That's part of the utilities. And then you have your helpers or your domestic help. So if you want to engage some, you have your gardeners, your drivers, your all-around maids or helpers, swimming pool if you have one. Those are some of the expenses that we help them with prior to their move. Yeah.
Sure. Got it. Cecilia, from your side, I mean, my point was largely about how do you educate your clients, which are your global mobility or HR professionals in your client side, for them to kind of, understand the nuances of the cities where you're moving people. I mean, is there kind of a vibrant communication network between you and your clients to constantly give the feedback back to your client as to what should they expect from you?
I think it's utmost important that both parties sit down and manage our expectation. We'll definitely give them a broad stroke overview of what the country or what the whole city is able to offer them. However, we'll do our very best to meet their expectation. And what is important is that we need to find a middle ground to talk about how they want to host their assignee, how we can provide this service for them, how we can speak to our property providers, mitigating all this expectation from their assignee. I think most importantly is when we openly discuss how we feel about the whole situation. If it's a brand new host country for that particular client of ours, we need to have an open conversation, and also to tell them very constructively what is to expect, so that we will not have a mismatch of expectation. So this is what we will do here.
Sure. Rajesh, in terms of your continuous interaction with your clients, in terms of what all you see on the ground, and what has been your mechanism of kind of helping them understand and realize the challenges they will face when they move their employees?
Yeah, no, I think both Karen and Cecilia put it very nicely about setting the expectation and everything, all the details which Karen shared. But one thing we realize in tier 2 cities specifically, that if you do some prep work, it really helps. Now, one of the two things we've done actually very well for a couple of companies recently was that we built a dossier of information about everything they need to expect in that particular city. It was a paid engagement where they actually go back and ask you everything, right from disaster management, recovery, evacuation, what is a tier, what is a primary airport, what is a secondary one if you do. because you don't want to be built, you need to plan well in advance with the tier one hospitals, whether, how do you connect with these, some of the specialization which is available? How do you basically do an on-call doctors, etc.? So if you do that little prep work and if you do build a dossier for that, a little map about everything, all the challenges, and you put down a particular solutions, then I think the move into the city becomes a lot more holistic. And after that, you basically find that you need to address the simpler issues, which is to be dealt with. So engage early, bring your risk teams, make a dossier about that particular city so you coverage end to end. And I think you would have a larger, a better, more success, I think, in terms of relocation.
Yeah, I think one quick example which comes to my mind is about I know about some people you mentioned Ahmedabad, right? I mean, very unique in terms of culture, the availability of food habit, especially for expat assignees.
Yeah,
I'm aware of people staying now in five-star hotels for like 3 and 5 months. I mean, as long as that period, because of the fact that the local community around or the local culture around do not permit or do not have those like options for you to try out, whether it's food habits, whether it's other lifestyle habits as well. So, I mean, imagine that kind of a cost of assignment when you have to, host somebody for 3 to 5 months in a five-star hotel in Ahmedabad. I mean, it completely changes the entire financial dynamics of the assignment there. So I think it's pretty critical in terms to get the on ground knowledge as to what you could otherwise you can't assume what applies in Mumbai will apply in Ahmedabad just because they are in the western part of India, like that kind of an example, right? So it is very different,
absolutely.
and
Very true.
as you rightly said that you need to actually have a very core information about that particular location, how it works, and you cannot generalize one location versus another. I mean, you can't even bracket one tier two city with another tier two city in terms of
Correct.
your policy, right? I mean, because every city will have its own unique culture, challenges. Some things may be much more easier in one tier two as compared to other tier two. So I think there's just too much of variation across tier two as well, so that you can't even have a common one standard policy which can fit in for all tier two as well. So it's as dynamic as that. You're right.
Yes, spot on.
Yes. Uh, I mean, if I were to just summarize what we have discussed about, I think what really stands out is that Tier 2 mobility has to stand in its own program, right? I mean, it has to be their own focus on, you will have a larger umbrella of global mobility programs, but within that, you need to create that subset of a Tier 2 mobility program as well. And within Tier 2 as well, I think you'll have to create a city-wise policy where if you have multiple tier 2 cities where you are sending employees, because each city will have its own uniqueness, and each policy should have the core components of what you can expect in that particular city, because I believe that for anybody to move into tier 2 city, I think the focus is far more greater, it has to be far more micromanaged, it has to be far more high touch in terms of the service and the hand holding given to the assignee and the family to ensure that you can move there with a more easy and a seamless experience, rather than to go and then figure out yourself kind of a scenario where most organizations then are only reacting towards what their family is experiencing and not being more proactive and being making them aware of what to expect. Right. Second, what I believe is that yes, once you're moving people in, I think you need to give them some bigger duration of temp housing compared to what you would otherwise in a tier one, given the challenges around getting a great option for longer term housing. So, but at the same time, making sure that temp housing is a little larger enough to kind of help them feel the place and understand how it will work before we commit to a larger long term accommodation and long term relocation there. I think that becomes important. I think any of your clients actually do a look-see trip when it comes to moving people to tier 2 city? They want the expat and the family to go and have a look at the location before they can formally make an assignment or a relocation. Is that a common experience which you observe with tier 2 cities? Karen, Cecilia?
Yes, a lot of our clients do, but not all of them.
Okay.
But a lot of them do, and we shortlist different areas that they like during the look-see. So when they move here permanently, we can focus on those areas.
Got it. Cecilia?
So for us, we personally like to do our own groundworks, especially um, we know that this client is going to have a huge move. And like what I did last year and this year, I personally will head down to the country and to make sure or to have a general idea what can be uh, what can be extended to our clients in terms of the temporary accommodation need. So it's absolutely important that we first do our groundworks and know that city first before we can, try to negotiate something or share something with our clients, which is what we have always done here in Silverdor.
Great. Rajesh, about your clients, especially when it comes to tier two cities in India?
Yeah, I think it's very similar to what Karen said. From an IO's perspective, they do basically love to come and actually do a look-see and they do a pre-decision basically. But not all clients today are doing that because
Mm-hmm.
they've already invested into that. Their business partners have already helped them to set up an operations over here. So the decision at times is not about only the city, but also they look at it from a career perspective, right? I mean, tier two is a leadership role comes up probably. I mean, that the both sides to it. They see that it's a leadership, a fast track to their growth strategy. So a lot of them are basically now invested, thinking that moving to tier two city may give them an opportunity to grow within the organization. So they don't necessarily go for a look see. But if you have very senior positions, whether you have MDs or senior most, they do definitely come back and see that because that is actually a big defining moment for them. But the next rung below them, I mean, they don't necessarily come for the look see, they just come for the opportunity.
Sure. I think that's a great insight.
Mm-hmm.
I think coming back to this about, from an HR or global mobility policy perspective, I think they need to look at a few aspects, what's on the slide right now, especially around minimum standards from a duty of care perspective, whether it's housing, healthcare, schooling, transport. Also, at the same time, it's very important for the HR and global mobility teams to really keep constantly getting feedback from the assignees as well, from the
Mm-hmm.
families to ensure that how are they settling in? Is there a lot of time being wasted in trying to manage local issues rather than focusing on work? I mean, what they call the time to productivity ratios and all, and what is satisfaction level? Because I think the larger objective of everyone is to make the assignment or the relocation successful for the expat or the assignee and extent and the family as well, making sure that the business outcome ultimately is positive as a result of this move. So I think, I mean, this has been really insightful in terms of what all we see. Uh, I mean, I'm based out of India. The insights into Taiwan, insights to Philippines are outside of the main area. I think these are fascinating. I mean, the fact that we sometimes just feel that India might have more challenges than other countries, but that's not always the case.
Mhm.
We see very similarities in terms of what we are seeing in other locations within Asia as well when it comes to tier two city. We definitely had a question we want to take up now. And this is actually a very interesting one, Rajesh. This is something which to do with immigration process. Like in India, now we have a lot of expats coming into India, and they go to tier two cities, but they necessarily don't have an immigration service in that tier two location, right? I mean, somebody could be sitting in Madurai, but then obviously it'll get covered under the Chennai thing for a US embassy and all. So something on these lines. If in terms of your client needs, how have you looked at addressing such issues? If you have had clients reaching out to you to help them seek those FRRO registrations and all when they're not necessarily the tier two city.
Yeah, Ramesh, that's a good point. Just in case in Maharashtra, Pune, which is very big city, I mean, it
Yeah,
has a registration, but it has to work out of Mumbai.
yeah.
So yes, we take all the paperwork which is required. It just take a longer time, and then we work with our Mumbai office in order to coordinate to make all the meetings and everything else is set up. So there's a little bit lag time because of the coordination and ensure all of the documentation is done. But today, actually, in India, there is a certain the immigration is becoming much easier with a lot of the online, steps and processes they put into place. So yes, there are certain lags, but I don't think it's quite seamless. Once you basically hand it over to a, immigration service provider, they take care of it end to end, and there would be one visit if it's required to be done. But we have to prep for it, get all the documentation in line, do all the online booking, online paperwork that needs to be done. But it's getting to be quite seamless. But yeah, Pune and Mumbai is a classic example, but Madura and Chennai would be another beast out there, because there you would have to basically go up to Chennai in order to basically take care of all your immigration, appointments and everything needs to be done.
Yeah, I think it's another very unique aspect of tier two cities, because generally they are not ready to deal with these kind of services. Like most of the embassies and all would have been, at the most they'll be in tier one cities only. They would not have those branches, extended branches in tier two cities. So obviously, an additional cost of managing immigration as well has to kicking in terms of the policy level as well. So I think this was a great question. I think it is. This has been a fantastic and a very insightful conversation. I think we've learned so much out of it, and I think there's something. One other question also is, yeah, okay. Thank you, Deborah, for the comment here. Yeah. So yeah, I think all of the tier two actually is a different beast, if I were to put it that way now, given the fact that yes, let's address it very separately, and let's kind of help manage the expectations in a much better way. So thank you, Karen, Cecilia, Rajesh. I think this has been a very fascinating conversation. I'm sure we'll have more on this topic going forward, because I think this is just expanding as a topic amongst the global mobility professionals. Next time, and maybe we take a little more deep dive into a few larger aspects of tier two, as well as the challenges expand. So thank you again a lot for your time and your effort and your commitment towards this webinar, Rajesh, Cecilia, Karen. Usually
Thank you
thankful to
very
you.
much for having us on.
For having us.
Yeah,
Thank
usually
you.
thankful to you. Thank you.